are you, Baba? It's been ages since I last sat and talked to you. I nearly forgot about my promise to write to you whenever happiness sneaks into my little heart. I'm afraid a letter filled with happiness risks never being written, so let me write to you without conditions. Don't deprive me of the sense of satisfaction I used to get when addressing you. Today marks 11 years since the day you were gone, but only now am I starting to realize how dearly I miss you, how your loss is too awful a beast to conquer. You know you are sorely needed. My only solace is that I know you feel my thoughts. Life has become more painfully complex than getting a good grade in history or going out with Auntie Karama's family. Life is never that simple. What to tell you? Gaza is frustrating these days, well, these years. It's a good exercise in patience, at least. This summer is the worst of all the summers that passed without you. Breathing some good air has become a luxury we cannot always afford. When nothingness takes over, which happens quite too often, I sit in my room, which is fully exposed to the sun, gazing at the tiny mark of the gunshot and the ugly crack it left there. Yes, that very same crack on the wall caused by his rifle. Such an eyesore. Other times, I would gaze at it trying to recall how that soldier might look like. That huge creature grabbed you out of my bed and didn't give you the chance to finish my bedtime story. I cannot remember anything but his dusty, black boots and the frightening rifle. So many times, I tried to imagine how he would look like and always ended up believing he is no more than a faceless monster. Maybe I have gone too far, thinking of him, of his life, of his family, of his wife whom he loves, of his smart kid who can get a good grade in math, of him laughing and crying. Baba, what would make this kind of human rejoice over the fact that I am living the agony of being fatherless, with an uncompleted story? It is when darkness prevails that I sit by the window to look past all those electricity-free houses, smell the sweet scent of a calm Gazan night, feel the fresh air going straight to my heart, and think of you, of me, of Palestine, of the crack, of the blank wall, of you, of Mama, of you, of my history class, of you, of God, of Palestine, of our incomplete story. I enjoy bringing to my mind your tender voice narrating the story of Thayer. I still remember how I cheerfully beamed when you told me that Thayer and I are so much alike, that he has my wild eyes, and I his sheepish smile. I have not yet known who he is or where in life he stands, but I believe I had always trusted your heroes. I can never forget how your dazzling eyes had brightened when you recalled him planting some olive seedlings in the backyard of the orphanage. God bless the smile on your face. God bless the seeds under the ground. I can never forget how you looked me in the eyes and said, "He is a boy who lost his whole family to death but never lost faith in life. I want you to be as strong." Baba, do you remember when I asked you if he was strong enough to wrestle an Israeli soldier? You grinned. You always did, but you didn't answer me. You wanted me to figure things out on my own. You told me he was only 12 years old when one of the orphanage girls, Amal, started trembling, hallucinating, and sweating, but nobody there had the guts to break the military curfew to die. Thayer, however, did go out to bring a doctor for Amal, and then hell on earth, Baba. And then you are no more. I don't remember when exactly I started to care about completing Thayer's story, but whenever I ventured to think of giving it a proper ending, I would get tired, and the weight in my head would grow heavier. I could not do it on my own. I thought I had to think twice, once for me, and once for you. I have tried my best, Baba. Doing so was not easy, nonetheless. Of all the people around me, you know best that it takes two to complete a story, it always does. I hated the fact that I might have been driven by curiosity and the sheer love of endings. There is another you in my life, just like your photo that stands above the repugnant crack, and your Kufi yacht, whose rich black was worn out to a glorious gray. They are all living parts of you. I had to believe that it is the fear of losing yet more of my father that pushed me there. Once I thought, of your soulmate, Mama. I thought you must have talked to her about Thayer. I imagined you both had spent nights admiring his eyes and smile, for I can clearly remember when you got together, which was some kind of a luxury for Mama, talks between you did not end. I sometimes travel to specific memories. I hear the timbre of your voice and the echoes of Mama's laughter which died long ago. But don't you worry, Mama never fails to smile. I know I shouldn't bother you, Baba, but you've got to know that every passing day, Mama is getting friendlier. I always wonder, what does she know which I don't and makes her go on in a life of bitter loneliness? She must know much, right? Thinking that she knew Thayer, I once plainly asked her, what happened to Thayer, in the end? She washed the last dish, turned the tap off, and stared at the sink for some time. I felt like she was about to give me the healing answer. But she at once retracted. Who's Thayer? She asked, narrowing her eyes. Thayer, I answered. Then seeing uneasiness drawn on her face, I repeated, Thayer. My father's Thayer. In every move she made and every word she didn't say, I could see the glint of a story in the distance. She used her silence to shield the chaos I spotted in her eyes. Mama. Thayer, the strong kid who planted olive trees at the orphanage. I went on trying to get her to talk. Strong? Huh. It doesn't matter how strong you are or pretend to be, life is going to get to you sometimes, and that doesn't make you weak, sweetheart, it makes you human. I know, Baba, you don't know this new woman, I don't either. I like to call it wisdom. Mom has become cynical, unfortunately, but she gained a lot of wisdom nonetheless. Believing that her answer had nothing to do with your Thayer, I asked her again if she knew what happened to him and whether he got back to the orphanage or not. He got back home, indeed. We all will, she whispered under her breath. I spent that night thinking of Thayer's home, of the distant life in Mama's eyes. I kept wondering what's more torturous, the awful buzz of the drone outside or the sounds of some tough questions inside. I guess I eventually slept with no answer, thanking the drone for not giving my inner uproar any chance to abate. 2 weeks ago, Grandfather went out with Abu Faraz, a neighbor, to get the UNRWA food coupons. He left home sane and returned crazy. That simple. Abu Faraz says Grandpa waited 3 solid hours under the burning sun in the long queue. When he finally was about to get the coupon, he asked the man there, "What are you offering me?" His answer was simple, "Food." "And when exactly am I going to get my Jaffa with this coupon?" Grandpa cried out. You can imagine what kind of hullabaloo took place, but everything calmed down when Abu Faraz forced him back home. I don't like to think much of the incident. I know that ever since you've been gone, his life is entirely devoted to the grief over a lemon tree and a dear son. Now, he is no longer the man I would talk to for hours. He doesn't believe anymore, doesn't he believe in me? He says people fight and die to regain our Palestine. But those freedom fighters don't come back, nor does Palestine. He swears you are now in Jaffa sitting by a lemon tree, enjoying the sun disappearing into the blue of our marvelous sea. Grandfather says you would never come back, for who on earth could leave the paradise of Jaffa? I am, day after day, falling in love with the years that dwell in his wrinkled face and the memories of the old days which are the beats of his weak heart. You have to expect that I asked grandfather about Thayer. He immediately replied, Thayer refused to share a breath with this dirty world. He chose to grow up somewhere else. Don't give me that ridiculous face. Yes, dead people do grow up, but don't you ever believe that they grow older? This answer was even more confusing than Mama's. I don't believe you. Thayer could have never considered death as an option. And what about Amal? Was he selfish enough to leave her to die? I cried. Who is Amal? Grandpa asked with no sense of concern. For some reason, I felt relieved. I smiled and answered, my grown-up friend. You should meet her sometime. I told him I intended to visit Auntie Karima the next day and asked if he would like to come. He said he could no longer tolerate children and full houses. I couldn't care less. I kissed his forehead. It smelled like the fragrance of lemon blossoms. I felt like he planted a lemon orchard in his cavernous wrinkles. Baba, how could he dare say Thayer was dead? He himself couldn't believe it. I celebrated every new moment added to Thayer's life. I had to be thankful for my faith, for you have to make that leap of faith if you ever want to heal. Years may be the length of one's life, but faith is, undoubtedly, the width. The next day I woke up really early. I, for my very first time, watched the sun rise. With the dimmed light around me, the world looked just like how I felt. And that was when I looked deep down and started to break apart. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't stop. I started to wonder if the things I am living for are worth dying for. I started to think of everything I had in life. Although I have lots of things, they never seem to be necessary. Every time I think I had it the way I really fancy, it twists and turns and slips away. I didn't feel your soul around. Though I tried to dream you closer, it stayed away just like before. I knew it was about Thayer. I was afraid that I would fall asleep again knowing that he'll always be the story with no ending. I knew that you were just a story away. A story away. Because I could no longer wait to know what happened to Thayer, I spared the sun 2 hours to take its favorite place in that awe-inspiring sky. The weather had not yet decided its attitude. The cool air was deceiving, so I put your glorious kufiya around my neck, and I unwaveringly went out. I trusted life that day. Grandfather might think that's naive, but you wouldn't, I believe. Life is one of the few that is trustworthy. They say, to find something, anything, a great truth or a lost pair of glasses, you must first believe there will be some advantage in finding it. And what an advantage, Baba! When I finally reached Auntie Karima's house, I knocked on the door impatiently. I waited more than 10 minutes outside. Nobody answered my continuous knocks. I was about to return home when Auntie opened the door. She was asleep. How could she sleep while I didn't know where Thayer's story ends? She welcomed me inside, and excused me to change her clothes. "Please, don't," I hastily replied to her apology. She raised her eyebrows, turned pale, and said, "What's the matter with you? Something wrong must have happened to your grandfather, or what on earth could bring you this early when you haven't visited me in months? Oh God! What happened to him?" I had to calm her down and drive away her worries. "It's Thayer who brought me this early," I said. "Yes, Baba?" I asked Auntie Karima. "I had to, for I knew she was your closest friend ever since you were a little kid who couldn't spell Palestine. She always prides herself on the fact that she taught you to spell it just right. You had always believed in its bigness. P for passion, A for aspiration, L for life, E for existence, S for sanity, T for trust, I for you, N for nation, E for exaltation. And then you wrote it just right. You wrote it everywhere you could, on walls, on tables. You carved the stunning letters into trees, and ended up with them engraved in your heart. What about Thayer?" She bluntly answered my direct question. Hope found its way back to my heart to congratulate me on the fact that Auntie did know Thayer. I mean, what happened to him in the end? Did he manage to get his way back to the orphanage? Did Amal survive? I asked, but she chose not to give an answer. Truth be told, I was disappointed. I felt you didn't trust my heart, you didn't want me to get any closer to your story. She returned dressed in black and said, "Get up, we are going somewhere special." With my teary eyes, I gazed at her and said, "Where on this part of the planet is there somewhere special?" She got angry at my answer and said that I am not worthy of knowing Thayer in the first place if I didn't believe in this part of the planet. You have to know that I felt ashamed. We eventually left. She took me to places I have never been to. The narrow, dark roads of the camp captivated my heart. I felt that bittersweet sensation. I felt you were there. I was sure you were there. On our way to the special place, Auntie Karima didn't stop talking about every single family in the camp. Stories of deep agony were our companions. I asked her how she could know all these stories. She said that our Nakba is no secret. I admired her more than ever. In my eyes, she had been no more than a dull history teacher. It was the first time I knew that she refused to get promoted, to be more than a third-grade teacher. She believed in children. She said she couldn't leave the hope that resides in their pure, little hearts. "Here we are," she said. I was totally surprised. Was it even a place? I went in speechless. Auntie Karima seemed to enjoy the remnants of a burned house. A scent coming out of the earth enveloped me. I couldn't wave it away. Auntie's smiling silence started to press heavier on my heart. I lost sense of place. I'm nowhere. I'm everywhere. I'm here. Auntie's fruity voice finally came to life such that you wouldn't believe it had ever been silent. Goodness. Can't you feel it? Your father spent his entire youth teaching the kids here to spell Palestine. P for passion, A for aspiration, L for life, E for existence, S for sanity, T for trust, I for you, N for nation, E for exaltation. I, for a few seconds, was afraid that she too had gone crazy. Which kids, Auntie? Your special place is no more than a wasteland, I spoke finally. She swallowed what seemed to be a great deal of anger. She went back to the ruins. She smiled. She laughed. She cried. She went on sighing. Now what does your place have to do with Thayer and Amal? I interrupted her ongoing sighs. You know what, Miriam? You blew it. However, I have always believed life is about second chances. You hardly ever deserve them, but at some point we all need them. She tenderly replied to my rudeness. She went on, asking me, if you prayed for courage, does God give you courage, or the chance to be courageous? If you prayed for truth, does God give you His truth in your hand, or the chance to open your eyes? Life takes work, I believe, I briefly answered. Then open your eyes, sweetheart. Look past the burned house. You'll find the answer by yourself. I believe in you. I believe in whomever your father told the story of Thayer, she said, smiling at my teary eyes. I couldn't see anything, Baba. Nothing caught my bleeding heart. I felt ashamed. I felt you deserved a better successor. I lowered my head to the ground. I smiled. I laughed. I cried. I kept on sighing at the sight of the olive tree standing alive at the very end of the burned house, of the orphanage. Thayer's seeds grew up. Nothing else was left, but the tree was enough for me, for Amal, for Thayer, and for you, my dearest Baba. It is when darkness prevails that I sit by the window to look past all those electricity-free houses, smell the sweet scent of a calm Gazan night, feel the fresh air going straight to my heart, and think of you, of me, of Palestine, of the orphanage, of the olive tree, of you, of Amal, of Mama, of you, of my history class, of Auntie Karima, of you, of God, of Palestine, of Thayer's story.